Hello everyone, myself Prashant Patil. Today we will see a new topic, fragmentation and types of fragmentation and difference between internal and external fragmentation. First we will see the definition of fragmentation. Fragmentation refers to the condition of a disk in which files are divided into pieces scattered around the disk. Means that fragmentation refers to the condition of a disk in which files are divided into number of pieces, and these pieces are scattered around the different places in the disk. Actually, fragmentation occurs naturally when you disk frequently, creating, deleting and modifying some files. So at some point the operating system needs to store parts of a file in non-contiguous clusters. This is entirely invisible to users, but it can mm, slow down the speed at which data is accessed because the disk drive must search through different parts of the disk to put together a single file. Then we will see the types of fragmentation. There are two types of fragmentation. The first one is the internal fragmentation. Memory block assigned to a process is bigger, some portion of memory is left unused as it cannot be used by another process, is called as internal fragmentation. The second type of fragmentation is external fragmentation. The total memory space is enough to satisfy a request or reside a process in it, but it is not contiguous, so it cannot be used. External fragmentation can be reduced by a compaction or shuffle the memory content of place all free memory together in one large block. To make compaction feasible, reallocation should be dynamic. Now we will see internal fragmentation briefly. Internal fragmentation happens when the memory is split into mounted size block. Whenever method request for the memory, the mounted size block is allocated to the method. Just in case the memory allocated to the method is somewhat larger than the memory requested, then the disjunction between allotted and requested memory is that the internal fragmentation. Internal fragmentation occurs when the memory is divided into fixed sized of blocks. Whenever a process requests for the memory, the fixed size block is allocated to the process. So in this case, memory is assigned to the processes is somewhat larger than the memory required or requested. Then the difference between assigned and requested memory is the internal fragmentation. Actually, this leftover space inside the fixed sized block cannot be allocated to any processes as it would not be sufficient to satisfy the request for the memory by the processes. So let us understand internal fragmentation with the help of an example. The memory space is partitioned into a fixed sized block 18,464 bytes. Let us say a process request for 18,460 bytes and partitioned fixed sized block of 18,464 bytes is allocated to the process. Actually, this result is 4 bytes of 18,464 bytes remained empty, which is the internal fragmentation. So the overhead of keeping track of this internal hole created due to the internal fragmentation is subsequently more than the number of internal holes. The problem of internal fragmentation can be solved by partitioning the memory into the variable sized block and assign the best sized block of a process requesting for the memory. Still, it will not be eliminate the problem of internal fragmentation but will reduce it some extent. Now we will see the figure. Now see in the figure, this figure or diagram clearly shows that the internal fragmentation because difference between memory allocated and required memory space is called internal fragmentation. Actually, just in case of memory allotted to the method is somewhat larger than the memories requested, then the distinction between allotted and requested memory is that the internal fragmentation. Now we will see external fragmentation in brief. External fragmentation happens when there is a sufficient quantity of area within the memory of satisfying the memory request of a method. However, the process's memory request cannot be fulfilled because the memory offered is during a non-contiguous manner. Either you apply first fit or best fit memory allocation strategy, it will cause external fragmentation. So, external fragmentation occurs when there is a sufficient amount of space in the memory to satisfy the memory request to a process. But the process's memory request cannot be satisfied as the memory available in the non-contiguous manner. Either you apply first fit or best fit memory allocation strategy, it will be cause external fragmentation. So when a process is loaded and removed from the memory, the free space creates the hole in the memory space. There are many such holes in the memory space. There is called as external fragmentation. The first fit and the best fit can affect the amount of external fragmentation. It cannot be totally eliminated. Compaction may be the solution of external fragmentation. So here we can use the compaction algorithm as we seen in the previous video. Actually, the compaction algorithm shuffles all memory contents to one side and free one large block of memory. But the compaction algorithm is expensive. There is an alternative solution of solve external fragmentation issue, which will allow a process to acquire physical memory in a non-contiguous manner. The technique to achieve this solution are paging and segmentation. Now, see in the figure. In this figure, we can see that there is enough space, which is 55 KB kilobyte memory, to run a process which is required for 50 kilobytes. But enough memory is 55. But the memories or the fragmentation is not contiguous. Here we can use the compaction technique or paging or segmentation to use the free space to run a process. Now we will see difference between internal and external fragmentation. The first difference is internal fragmentation fixed size memory block square measures appointed to the processes. In external fragmentation, the variable sized memory block square measures appointed to the method. Now the second difference is that internal fragmentation happens when the method or the process is larger than the memory, as we seen in the previous slide. External fragmentation happens when the method or the process is removed by using the compaction algorithm. The third difference, the solution of internal fragmentation is best fit block. Solution of external fragmentation is compaction, paging and segmentation is required. Next difference is that internal fragmentation occurs when memory is divided into fixed sized partitions. But in external fragmentation occurs when memory is divided into variable size fragmentation or the partition based on size of the processes. The next difference is that the difference between memory allocation and required space memory or memory is called as internal fragmentation. Now this is one simple definition is there. The unused space formed between non-contiguous memory fragmentation are too small to serve a new process is called as external fragmentation. Thank you.